Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this, the clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And today we are really seeing the consequences of the Tories realising that they don't have a chance next election, and they have absolutely no plan to try and turn that around. Aside from all reliable that never seems to work but they try it all the time anyway, let's just attack Labour. This entire week has been them on the Twitter front trying to attack Labour, saying Labour are terrible, and you know what, I agree with them. The problem is that when you've had 14 years of Conservative rule, well, some of us like a bit of a change. And not necessarily for Labour, but at least anything else. So what am I talking about? We'll go through two particular examples, but just for a quick overview, it's things like this. Whenever Labour runs something, they run it into the ground. Nottingham has gone bankrupt. Nottingham City Council has sold off £64 million worth of property assets to cover their debt costs. And the thing is with me, if I just saw Nottingham City Council has sold off £64 million worth of their property assets, I would be setting off fireworks. That is great. That is what I like to hear. To cover debt costs, though, well, yes, that is where things get quite bad. And yes, Nottingham and Birmingham Council, they would like to keep all these assets, but they can't afford it because of things like the Equality Act. You know, that thing that the Tories have overseen 14 years of governance keeping in place. And people don't like an awful lot of it. Another example of their panic station tweeting is Labour's flagship policy will cost 4 times more than they previously admitted, according to new analysis. Keir Starmer can't say how he'd afford his eco-spending spree because he doesn't have a plan. That means higher taxes and higher bills for everyone, which is an embarrassing thing for the Conservative Party to say, given that they have been overlooking the entirety of the country for 14 years, and we now have the highest spending and the highest tax burden that we have seen since at least World War II. In other words, it's a bit like the Tories have kneecapped the entire country but is pointing it to Labour and saying, yes, but they'll cut your left foot off. Either way, you still can't walk. But then we start getting into the more, well, weirder claims. Life under Labour is a dystopian future, but one that's all too real for people already living in places like Wales and London. Whenever Labour runs something, they run it into the ground. See for yourself. And they have a little Twilight Zone video that they've made. I mean, honestly, effort and money that went into this probably could have gone into, you know, giving us decent policy. Anyway, let's take a look at the video.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension of higher taxes and higher bills. You're moving into a worse future of unfunded ideas and fewer opportunities.
As someone who has lived in both Wales and England, it's not that different. Neither place exactly seems to be a great place for either opportunities or funded ideas. And that's because it is unironically true. The Tories and Labour are effectively slightly left and right to a particular centre ground we have in the UK that's just really weird and that only the political elites really care to actually try and reach. And the centre ground is so far left of the rest of the country, you know, the normies, the type of people that didn't go to uni to try and up their status with the opinions that they can learn there, that people are just seeing this sort of thing and saying, isn't this what we've had for 14 years though? No matter if they have voted Tory for the last 14 years or voted literally anyone else for the last 14 years. It's just an embarrassing video to try and make. You have had 14 years to try and achieve something. What can you actually point to that's an achievement? You can't. That's why for the past 3 days, you've been trying to attack Labour. Because yes, I agree, they are worse, but they're not that much worse.
Where rubbish lines the street and local crime goes unchecked.
Again, very embarrassing to have complete control of Parliament for 14 years. In fact, having an 80-seat majority in Parliament and then trying to say, oh, this is actually local council level problems, which litter, yeah, sure. Crime, no, that's a Home Office issue. And violent crime has only gone up under Tory rule. Again, you have nothing positive to say about your time in office. This is why people want you to have 0 seats.
You've just crossed over into life under Labour.
Right. Kinda cringe.
I mean, this was so bad it had a community note, for goodness sake. The UK tax burden on the Conservatives is the highest in 70 years. UK energy bills have risen to record levels under the Conservative Party, and police recorded crime has increased by 59% since 2010, under the Conservatives. And that's not even mentioning that they don't even bother to turn up for half the crimes anymore. And I suppose the only thing I really need to clarify in that whole bit of the community note is that, yes, energy bills have risen. However, we have had a war in Russia and Ukraine that has kind of, ruined the whole global supply chain for oil and gas, which we do rely on to some degree. Anyway, in their great wisdom, they had another one lined up. London under Labour has become a crime capital of the world. Technically true, I guess. What else do you have to say?
London, a city steeped in history.
I'm just going to point it out now. I am absolutely sick to the back teeth already of the American accents in these videos. You are trying to appeal to British people. And I get you're trying to go for a Twilight Zone aesthetic here, but more people have seen the Futurama spoof, The Scary Door, than have seen the actual Twilight Zone. This doesn't work.
But tonight, its ancient streets bear witness to a different tale. A tale not of kings and queens, but of crime and desperation.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
It is a city now run by the Labour Party. Its police answer to them.
This is just wrong, and even the community note points this out. The Metropolitan Police is overseen by the Commissioner of the Police of the Metropolis, who is appointed by the Home Secretary. It's part of the current Labour government. It's part of the current Tory government. It's not run by Labour at all, not even by Sadiq Khan. Which is why I don't have a massive go at him about all of this stuff going on with, the pro-Palestine marches, because it's not to do with him. The Home Office look after the police forces. It's not a devolved issue. Well, it's not a devolved issue in England, I should say. It is absolutely devolved in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. In fact, maybe not Wales, I'm not too sure on that. Point being, it's the Tories' fault.
It is a blueprint for how Labour intend to run the rest of the country.
Oh, again, no, wouldn't be saying that. This is entirely your doing.
In the depths of these narrow passageways tread squads of ULEZ enforcers dressed in black, faces covered with masks, terrorizing communities at the beck and call of their Labour mayor master, who's implemented attacks on driving, forcing people to stay inside.
No, not forcing people to stay inside, that's just hyperbole. But it does cost a lot more to go out in your car if you go from one area of London to another. Probably if you stay in the same area as well, I don't know. I don't drive in London, thank God. But, again, as Tories, you could have brought in legislation that stopped things like that, but you didn't. Apparently it's such a disaster for the country that it's caused people to literally be locked in their homes. That sounds like something that the government should get involved in. That sounds like you should be stopping that type of thing, but you didn't.
Gripped by the tendrils of rising crime, London citizens stay inside. The streets are quiet. Quieter at night now than they used to be.
Ah, finally, you get to something that you can actually talk about. Are you going to talk about how he also spends over £100,000 a year on a night czar who only works 2.5 days, and all she actually seems to do is travel around the world? That literally seems to be her job, by the way. Just go to places and maybe make a speech while she's there. That's it.
A 54% increase in knife crime since the Labour mayor seized power has the metropolis teetering on the brink of chaos.
No, they're just going to skip over that and keep shooting themselves in the foot. Why would I want people in Parliament who are part of a party this incompetent?
And in the chaos, people seek a desperate reprieve, egged on by the Labour mayor who wants to decriminalise the use of illegal drugs. London's drug death rate is at a record high.
I mean, yes, finally, something that a Conservative Party should be attacking Labour on. They want to legalise illicit drugs. Yeah, good, finally. Only took you at the end of a 2-minute video, where apparently you're supposed to be curb-stomping Labour, but all you've done again is kneecap yourself. I just can't believe how incompetent they're being, to be honest. Again, they deserve the low polling numbers they're getting at the moment. Remember, the whole reason they got rid of Boris Johnson was because he was 2 or 3 points behind Labour. They're now like 20. It's unbelievable.
But this isn't just London, where Labour are in charge. Crime goes up, and justice goes down. For people living life under Labour, like the citizens of London, the scales of justice remain tipped in favour of the darkness, leaving them to navigate the shadows alone.
I'd put the smiling friends kind of cringe thing in again, but I've done the joke once. But you get the idea. This whole thing is obnoxious and cringe, and it's this type of thing. I was not a zero seats for the Tories guy before I started this video. Now I'm really starting to understand it properly. Because not being a zero seater, my thought process was keep them alive because they are a good vehicle to try and build up a proper right-wing alternative to. But maybe Peter Hitchens is right. Maybe you do just deserve to get completely annihilated because you clearly aren't learning any lessons now. And if I'm not seeing the lessons being learned now, I have absolutely no faith that you're going to learn them in the future. So, as far as I'm concerned, just go. I will take 5 years of Labour ruining everything for everyone to realise we need a new two parties in place before we get anywhere. Hopefully both will be to the right. I have my doubts that they will go left. I think accelerationism will be that bad. People will realise they've put their hand on the stove and that's what's burning them, and start moving further to the right, where things are a bit more sensible. Anyway, if you thought that was bad enough, they decided to post yet another similar style video out yesterday. Again, this is 3 days worth of posting out cringe. Yesterday we shocked the world with the chilling tale of Labour's ruinous mismanagement of our amazing capital city. Again, you mainly went on against crime and the Met Police's failures, and they are under your power. Not Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London's. But Labour's failure extends far beyond London. Today we expose the tale of the equally chilling, this time in Birmingham.
Birmingham, 2024. Amidst the bustle of this Midlands gem, a tale of mismanagement and fiscal irresponsibility unfolds in life under Labour.
So far, finally, I have nothing dreadful to say that I haven't already said before. They're still using the cringe American voice. Again, you are trying to appeal to the British. If you start using, American cultural touchstones, references, and even voice actors, you're not going to really appeal to anyone here.
A black hole in their budget has driven the Labour-run Birmingham Council to pass on the problem, hiking up council tax by an eye-watering 21%. In the corridors of power, a battle rages on as Labour councillors find ways to plug the hole in their finances, hiking up burial fees, reducing bin collections, selling off community centres.
This is an open goal to Labour, by the way. Labour would say, effectively, yeah, they wouldn't have to raise up council tax like that if you just, bailed them out, which I agree they shouldn't have to do, but you need to make a better case than this. Because all they can really say is, oh, there's a big black hole there. They don't really explain where all the money's gone. The main reason that Birmingham went bankrupt is because of the Equality Act. What they tried to do is, the bin men were going on strike because they wanted higher pay, so the council gave them higher pay. However, they were in the same band as people like, cleaners, dinner ladies, jobs which had majority women in their position. And so these unions that represented these workers put forward the case that this was discrimination based on sex because it was mainly male roles that were getting these pay increases rather than the women's. And obviously that stood up in court thanks to the Equality Act, and that's where all the money went. Paying the legal fees for this and paying the absolutely massive fine that the courts found that they had to pay. Now, does this explain any of that? No, of course it doesn't. It just says, oh, Labour, they just spend a lot. But again, you can just point to the Tories and say, yes, but you're spending a lot too. 40% of GDP is spent on public funding of, redistribution of wealth. That's about a third of public spending. The NHS is effectively another third, and then the last third goes to a lot of things that people aren't really seeing the benefit from. Roads are still all garbage. Public services don't seem that great, and the NHS is still one of the worst healthcare systems in Europe. So, great.
But in life under Labour, it's not only services being put to the sword. 600 jobs are now at risk as a result of Labour's appalling financial mismanagement of the council. Pile-high rubbish and boarded-up buildings are bookmarks in a chapter of history that residents in Birmingham would rather forget. Problems caused by Labour, but it's the local residents who ultimately pay. In life under Labour, the scales of justice are balanced by a force beyond mortal comprehension.
If I was CCHQ at the moment, I would demand to know whose idea it was to even make this type of advert, and then who finalised the decision, and finally who pressed send on Twitter. And I would put them in front of the entirety of CCHQ, give them the biggest dressing down of their life, and then sack them from the party. These were the worst adverts I think I've ever seen for a political party in Britain. In America, it might make more sense, but here in Britain, that didn't tell us anything. Yeah, Birmingham Council are in dire straits at the moment. I mean, I've read the news, sure. You wouldn't actually understand why Labour are bad from that. Again, all it takes is for one Labour activist to say, yeah, well, the Tories could have bailed them out, and then that's going to be, left-leaning normies back on the side of Labour. Well done. You gave yourself an open goal. I suppose the one thing I can say is that at least all the tweets weren't bad. Here is one I could find that wasn't awful and does give a good idea of why you should maybe vote Tory. It's still not very good, but it's the best of the worst. So, the Tories are saying, as they always do, the NHS is better under the Conservatives than Labour. Well, I don't even want an NHS, so this isn't swaying me one way or the other, but again, from a normie point of view, this is pretty good. So under Tories, we eliminated longer waits. That's probably true, I don't know. And in Wales, the longest hospital waits in Britain are seen in Wales is NHS. This is true. I know this because I use the NHS in Wales. The Tories delivered 50 million more GP appointments, and Wales have never met their emergency targets. Again, that's true. Record number of new doctors and nurses, and 25% of Wales is on a waiting list. Again, I know that they got a record number of doctors and nurses because they've started bringing over people from Nigeria and other places who are basically just scam artists. They've never taken a proper exam. They get other people to do it for them, or they use a scam qualification where they don't even need to take exams, and then they get over here and people get killed. But again, to the normie point of view, this is a good thing. This particular advert, I should say, not that particular situation. The budget's been increased under Conservatives, that's true. Budget has been cut by NHS Wales, I think that's true. Record funding this year, yep, that's true. Well done, Tories. Once again, you're showing that you are very good at public spending. And NHS Wales underfunded by 500 million. I don't know how they've worked that out. And finally, backing NHS with long-term workforce plan, whereas there is a 60% dissatisfaction rate in patients in NHS Wales. Again, from what I have seen, that is true and completely believable. Again, specifically from a normie point of view, this looks like you should vote Tory, but from my point of view, it all kind of says it at the bottom here. Conservatives sticking with the plan, Labour back to square one. Yes, Labour is worse than you Tories, but your plan is dreadful. It is horrible. It has led you to a worse polling number than for Reform. And Reform recently just lost all the online right-wingers. I mean, I doubt that's actually going to affect polling much, I'll be quite honest with you, but still, there is no good right-wing alternative, is what I'm saying here. People are looking to the Homeland Party, but trust me, that's going to be in the public eye for about 2 weeks before people point out that its founder is ex-BNP and ex-PA, and then all of a sudden no one wants to vote for them. Like, you need someone with a completely clean nose to start a new party, and what that's going to take is effectively of having had no online presence, or at least having an online presence that is easy to scrub from the internet. I don't think it's going to be anyone we know if we get someone like this. Because effectively what's being on social media, and especially on YouTube, is it's just a record of absolutely everything you've said on a whim. And that is how they get people, by what they have said on a whim. And that is when your worst jokes can come out, the worst things you can say can come out, and it doesn't look good to the normies, despite the fact that most normies actually know that they're hyperbolic as well, and that they say terrible things as well. Maybe as a joke, or maybe to blow off steam. But the new elites like to pretend that they are not human. And so they don't do that at all, despite the fact that Justin Trudeau, the arch new elite of Canada, has done blackface more than any other person I know. But that's where we're up to at the moment. Labour and Tories are effectively pointing at each other and saying, yeah, but we'll be better than them. And the Labour one seems to be a lot more convincing because they've not been in power for 14 years, so I guess let's prepare for a Labour majority. Because Owen Jones leaving that party seems to have done absolutely nothing to their polling, so expect a win, because I don't think there's going to be a bigger lever of the left wing than Owen Jones, and it's done absolutely nothing to stop Labour still going strong. So, as I say, prepare for the worst. It's Clown Decade after all. You should have been expecting it to get worse before it got better, and here we are. Expect it in the next year. But anyway, that's everything I had for you today, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.